crammed in neat little piles along the sub's interior. And that meant that every single member of the crew died at their station. Drowning men don't just sit calmly at their posts and wait to die. They fight for their lives with every ounce of strength they possess. But if the crew of the H.L. Hunley didn't drown that night, what the hell happened to them? Like most civil wars, the American Civil War was largely fought on land. Largely, but not entirely. Early on, President Abraham Lincoln, leader of the Union forces, realized that whoever held the Atlantic coast would control key trade and resupply routes to the east. In 1861, Lincoln implemented a vast naval blockade against the southern states. It was extremely effective, and the Confederates were soon looking for ways to break through. The question was how. There was no hope of beating Lincoln's fleet head-on. The Union not only had more ships, they had more shipyards to build new ones. If the Confederates wanted to break Lincoln's blockade, they were going to need to get creative. They say that desperation is the mother of all invention, and in 1863, Old Mother Desperation gave birth to the attack sub. Ouch. Before it became part of military history, the name H.L. Hunley belonged not to a submarine, but to a man who was instrumental in developing it, Horace Lawson Hunley. The submarine that inherited his name after his untimely death, more on that in a minute, was incredibly basic by modern standards. In earlier designs, Hunley and his partners toyed with the idea of powering the submarine with a small steam engine. But given the time and technology constraints, in the end they settled for a significantly less high-tech source of propulsion: manpower. The Hunley was designed for a crew of 8 men, 1 to fill the role of captain, and 7 to power the hand crank that turned the propeller. With 7 men simultaneously cranking one out, the sub had a sprightly top speed of about 4 knots, the equivalent of a brisk walking pace for us landers. Conditions for the men inside were brutal. You can see from this picture just how small the internal space was. The men couldn't even sit fully upright as they worked the crank. Just like the sub itself, the torpedo was very basic. To be honest, it was pretty much just a bomb on a stick. There was no propulsion system, so the only way to actually use it was to get in close and stick it to the hull of the target ship. Despite its simplicity, early tests were promising. In July 1863, the Hunley successfully sank an old coal barge anchored in Mobile Bay in front of a certain Admiral Franklin Buchanan, the only full admiral in the entire Confederate fleet. He was so impressed, he sent the sub to the key port city of Charleston by rail with a plan to use it against the Union